Welcome. We're so excited to be here today on the first CSA Interviews with Women in Business with Canada Startup Association. We're excited to talk a little bit about SOAR. This is our exciting, new, innovative, upcoming women's program. We're going to explore today some unique challenges faced by women entrepreneurs, and we'll highlight the unique design of the SOAR program. And today we get to spotlight an awesome woman entrepreneur. And I'm going to have my colleague Hamad Siddiqui to introduce Kate. Hamad is the executive director at the Canada Startup Association, and I'm the program lead for SOAR. And Hamad, over to you to introduce our lovely guest for today.
Thank you. Very excited today, Deb. Thanks for amazing introduction. Kate, I met Kate, I think, 2023, first time when I moderated a panel discussion and had some kind of a nice conversation around the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem in Ontario in particular. And she was very forthcoming and she was actually very straight in saying few things. So I loved it. So Kate, welcome here. Kate Tomen
Thank
is
you.
a dynamic leader with over 9 years of experience in the business development, strategy, and operations. Until recently, she actually played a very important role at the Ontario Angel Investment Network as a vice president, business development and operations. She brings in a lot of knowledge about the ecosystem and has been, I would say, integral part of this ecosystem for over 9 years. So, Kate, you are the main force behind today's conversation. We would like to learn a lot from
Mm.
you, and we would actually like to pick your brain on how women entrepreneurs, particularly those who are coming here with a lot of knowledge, skill, and experience, and often experience of running their own startups back home as immigrants when they come here. What are some of the challenges they face? Um, so it will be a conversation between three of us. Let's keep it informal. Let's keep it uh, as knowledgeable as possible. And at this point, I would actually like you to say a few words, about your own journey, and we'll begin the whole interview after that.
Yeah, sure. So my career has been a hodgepodge of things, but um, yeah, I had a really, or at least what I thought was a clear idea of what I wanted when I was much younger. So I have a bachelor's of science from the University of Waterloo, and my plan was medical school. Obviously, that didn't happen, which is fine. Um, and I realized, I didn't really want that. And I also didn't want a career in research. So I did a complete 180, and I also have a bachelor's of commerce from the University of Windsor. And that's probably where I really started thinking more um, about entrepreneurship as a career. um, and it was through that experience that I worked with one of my first jobs at a university was I worked with a small startup in Windsor, a small biotech startup. And then I went on to work at the university in a fairly what they would consider an entrepreneurial and agile role within the university, which is not entrepreneurial or agile anywhere else, but it is on a university campus.
Mhm.
Developing non-degree programming, working with a lot of community partners in and around Windsor, Essex. Um, and then I decided I needed another degree. And so I went to Queens and I completed a master's in management and innovation and entrepreneurship. Um, and that seems to be sort of, I guess, like a catalyst for what the next part of my career was. I'd always had sort of one foot in that sort of entrepreneurship door. It's always been a part of my life. Growing up, my mother ran a business. Some of my like best friends are entrepreneurs, and a lot of people like around me in my life growing up were entrepreneurs. And so I came to this program And I think I had very different expectations of what I wanted out of it. And then one of the professors in that program was a previous board member at Angel Investors Ontario. So that's how I got involved with the organization. And I spent almost 6 years there, which
Uh-huh.
is crazy to think about, through a pandemic. um, and here we are. And I think you know, I, I always kind of joke it's like sort of like hodgepodge things together. But I think a lot of those experiences were driven by supporting entrepreneurs and supporting people to, start and build their own business. And so I'm excited to continue to do more of that, to work with really great organizations who are, doing really exciting and meaningful work for entrepreneurs and especially women entrepreneurs.
Thank you for that. So, I mean, you started with thinking about going to med school, and which is really cool because, as women, we need to pivot, right? Sometimes challenges pop up, different barriers, take time off for family, take time off for illness, don't get the jobs that we want. And these challenges really pose some problems sometimes. So having that entrepreneurial mindset of being able to pivot and try something different is really great. And I'm glad that you did, because that led us three together to create some more magic out there in the world. So, Kate, with your experience, I'm kind of wondering what kind of challenges that you might have bumped up against that other women maybe thinking about enrolling in the SOAR program might bump up against as well.
Um, you know, Probably the number one challenge that I hear a lot, and certainly coming from the role I was in, the world I was a part of for so long, is access to funding. I hear it all the time, especially at those very earliest stages for women entrepreneurs. And certainly when you sort of move down the funding line, I think it's still, maybe it's 3%, but the stat has been so long, only 2% of venture capital worldwide goes to women entrepreneurs. Um, and you certainly see that at the earliest stages. Um, and so, I mean, there's a number of factors that affect that. Um, but certainly improving that access for women and minority groups and underrepresented entrepreneurs is incredibly important, to help bridge that gap so they can continue to build these businesses. And I think within sort of that, and watching lots of pitches, lots of women pitch, lots of sort of everyone pitch to angel groups, to early stage venture funds. You certainly pick up on, sort of that unconscious bias, which we all have. It's not, it's just sort of something we all develop over time. Um, but it's something you need to be aware of. Certainly when you're reviewing pitches or potential investments, how that can skew your perception of a certain group, a certain product, et cetera, et cetera. And then, then there's other things too, like building a really supportive network. That can be an issue for women. Maybe they don't already have sort of that natural network to find peers, mentors, investors, um, collaborators, people that can really help push their business forward. So I think part of what we can do, or organizations can do, is really open up access to those networks. And then of course there's all the other things that women have to deal with. There's childcare, there's you know homemaking is probably not the right word, but it's the only word I'm thinking of. Right, there's lots of other things that women are responsible for at home that unfortunately is just sort of that unpaid labor that women are still expected to do, which really goes back to those sort of traditional family roles. So, offering resources like affordable childcare, um, flexible workspaces and hours. Um, and I think the pandemic, that was probably like one of the silver linings of the pandemic, that we did sort of get a little bit of flexibility in the corporate and entrepreneurial world, where we understand that people have lives outside of work. But certainly those are huge barriers to women. The burden of family life and childcare shouldn't just fall on women, but unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it still does. And what can we do to help women entrepreneurs bring some balance to that is, I think, still a question people are trying to address.
Uh, um, so while you were talking, and like with a couple of keywords that I picked up, in this conversation, one is network and communities. And I personally feel, and I would like to have your view on it. Accessing a network is often pretty challenging. Like, it's a great entry barrier, right? People don't uh, let you into that network, or accessing that network often is expensive as well, membership organizations, all that. But on the other hand, communities are playing a bigger role. I mean, as part of uh, building a global community myself, I know that communities are more welcoming and kind of have more um, lesser selfishness, if I may put it this way, in accepting these new ideas, or people who are just starting, and or people who just want to be on the sidelines and watch and get inspiration from other community members. So in that case, how do you see this community, the concept of community building in the Canadian ecosystem, or is it still in infancy, or do we have a somewhat established community concept here? And that's for the
I
startup
mean, I think it's,
ecosystem.
yeah, I think it's varying stages. There's certainly a really strong community here in Canada and Ontario, certainly in Toronto and sort of the large metropolitan hubs, um, where if you really sort of put your mind to it, there's a ton of events. There's lots of opportunities to meet people, whether you are an entrepreneur or you're looking to invest. There are opportunities to meet and get out and meet people. Um, I think probably where those things like miss the mark a little bit, but there's only so much you can do at an in-person one-off event, or maybe it's a recurring monthly meetup or something. Is really pairing women, or you know having those experienced leaders, mentors, industry leaders, is having them be part of that experience, part of a mentoring program, part of an opportunity where women and other maybe minority groups or entrepreneurs can really learn from and access those types of experienced leaders, those people that can really help open doors, or provide advice or guidance. So I think there's opportunities to always make things better, but there is certainly a really great community, here in Toronto, and there's always something going on. So if you want it, you can probably find it if you're in a large metropolitan area. But I think there's always room for improvement, because a lot of those events can feel at the little surface level. And I think for women, who traditionally don't have access to networks of experienced leaders, CEOs, heads of large multinational corporations, how do we, or even the playing field, and make sure that if that one, I don't want to call out any people, but maybe that like one group of men who's building like yet another software company has access to this incredible network because that is sort of their traditional network. How do we open up those networks to everyone, or
Mhm.
at least to high potential women entrepreneurs who sort of deserve that same access?
I think it's the support as well, right? That women can experience the ups and downs, the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, and being in those spaces where someone like you can say to someone like me, hold on, like it's rough right now for whatever reason, or here's a contact, Deb. Those things you can't buy those opportunities. And I think more of us are realizing that the opportunities that we can share within community just make good sense and they make us feel good too, right? Why not? I don't have
Yeah.
to put a price on sharing some of my knowledge or
No,
to
you
make a
don't.
warm connection, right?
Yes. Yes. And just having someone, um, you know, there's lots of groups where it's just entrepreneurs that meet up on some sort of semi-regular basis. And I think just having someone, whether it's through a program you're in or through one of these meetup events, just having someone who's going through the same things as you to commiserate is incredibly important. I find, it's entrepreneurship, building a business is an incredibly lonely thing. So it's nice to feel like there is a bit of a community, there is someone to commiserate with and someone to share, even those small wins with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, for instance, a newcomer, so I'm just talking from that perspective now. A newcomer woman who comes here with professional qualifications and perhaps, have also experimented or have ran her own somewhat small business or startup back home from wherever she's coming from. What do you suggest to such a person? What are some of the key steps, like initial steps, she should take to kind of start learning about the ecosystem and slowly start kind of building her own new venture in Canada?
I think you really have to think about what type of business you want to build, um, and then sort of do your own research. I mean, there's a bit of this that is like you at home alone doing your research, like there's a ton of information online now. Um, right. So like find those organizations that, are either offering programming that you're interested in and align with what sort of business you are trying to build. Find those communities, get out to an event, um, and just start meeting people. It's a little scary, I will say too. Like I'm not the best networker sometimes. But it's just about putting yourself out there. I think programs can be, um, I know, a really great opportunity depending on, the program, of course, and then what type of business you're trying to build. But, you know, completing a program that is focused on helping you build your business is kind of like going back to school. It provides you with a network already of other people in the program, of alumni in the program, um, of mentors in that program. So if you're brand new, sometimes that's a really great way to just sort of kickstart that network building. But certainly there's other ways to do it that are not through a program. I know a couple organizations try to keep like a community newsletter. I know we tried to do it at Angel Investors Ontario. So there is one on the website. Um, I think 111 has a community calendar. If you're in the Ottawa area, Invest Ottawa does like a great job with theirs. That was always trying to copy them. So there are places to find these events, these groups, these programs. Um, but certainly it's helpful if you can bring a friend or find a friend early on. Everything's always better with a friend. Um, but I think there's some really great programs out there that, offer a lot more than just a curriculum. It really does introduce you to a whole network. And of course, with anything in life, what you put into the program is what you get out. So those can be a really fruitful experience and a really great way to sort of kickstart that network building task.
So I see Deb, she's more talking about network building as the starting point, and this is what SOAR actually offers. The SOAR program that you are leading is creating a network, that little community that works together. And I'm a big fan of collaborations. And I wrote somewhere some time ago, "Alone is too lonely," and you can't really do everything alone. You could be because, like if we look at GTA only, it just everything is just too far, right? So and the virtual communities and programs like SOAR that actually bring people together. Um, and something also I picked up that from this last piece is you have to start learning first before you start jump into that sea of uncertainties, I would call it. So SOAR program offers those little bites to you that will lead you to create that roadmap. Anything, Deb, you wanted to add to this whole thing?
Well, I Kate talks my language in so many ways because you you've been there and you've had your eyes wide open to what works and what doesn't work. So I know when Hamad and I paired up to kind of start shaping like what a really responsive program could look like for particularly equity deserving women. And I mean, that's disabled women. That is women of color. That is women who are new to the country and can't get their accreditation quick enough to get employment. There's so many reasons why women are unemployed and underemployed. And we kind of combined forces and used a lot of Hamad's years of uh, program building and workshop design around really meeting people where they're at, combined with what I wanted to bring to the table was a lot of the mental health aspects of entrepreneurship. I've been there where I've been in program after incubator after accelerator. They're all fabulous, but I wasn't there, whether it was, I was having my own personal challenges. I was in overwhelm, and nobody in overwhelm can think or build the business that they want to build. So the reality is there that, when my system is hijacked, I'm not learning anything. I'm not networking. I'm not going out to those events because, maybe something's saying stay at home. So the more isolated, like Kate had mentioned, it's a lonely thing, this entrepreneurial journey. But Hamad and I talked about building the SOAR program to really, insulate people and have some wraparound supports so that there is learning. There is that roadmap Hamad talked about. You have a business idea, let's test it, you know? Let's see where we can take it. Work with others within the actual cohort to start building community. And then, as a wraparound support, connect them to mentors, connect them to the people they would not normally be in the room with, and see where that takes us. So, we're super excited about the SOAR program. We're going to launch that in March, and we have quite a few people on our wait list. I
Nice.
am so
Exciting.
excited. Yes, I wake up every morning and I check that list and it's like, no way somebody else gets it. Like they found the spot because no woman's going to be left behind. We're going to work together.
Yeah, and it's
Come on.
Canada-wide, right? It's across Canada. I mean, you can attend the program virtually. which, as I always say, Canada is such a big country. There could be um, a super intelligent woman, tech expert, whatnot, sitting somewhere in Manitoba or Saskatchewan and looking for such a program. It's not that those programs are not locally available, but we have kind of distilled the whole concept, as you also mentioned, Kate. It could be overwhelming for newcomers, particularly when they're just starting. So I'm sure you had interacted in your previous roles with some newcomers who wanted to be in that ecosystem, starting a business. What are some of the things that you have heard from them, if you would like to share those?
I think they probably share a lot of similar barriers with women. I mean, certainly starting your network from scratch is really hard. And especially, if English is not your first language, like I can't imagine what's that like to try to think in two languages. Um, so it's probably very similar. There's certainly biases, biases. I mean, like what is the plural? But
Oh,
right, that you have to overcome as a newcomer, as a immigrant to this country. Unfortunately, there's still lots of um, there's still lots of sort of I don't know, the old world thinking that you thought we would have gotten rid of, but we really, really haven't. I see lots of times whether it's a newcomer who is looking for a job or they are looking, maybe they came here through the startup visa program and they're looking to sort of launch their business to the Canadian market. What I hear the most is probably, well, people keep saying I don't have Canadian experience. And that can be, for your resume or, you don't have a Canadian client yet. And I just think that is like, so it's just such an old it's just such an old way of thinking. Our world is so global now. Um, but you still deal with that sort of that line of thinking, that bias. And I think too, immigrants are probably dealing with the same thing, trying to find childcare, trying to build a new community, learning about how Canadian society, Canadian business society operates. So probably parallels a lot of what women are
Yeah.
dealing with as well.
and thank
Yeah.
you, Kate. Yeah, that really reminds me of someone I spoke with who was interested in getting into a program. This was a while ago. And her one barrier was that she lacked financial literacy of within Canada. She didn't understand the credit system.
Oh,
So that was a barrier that she felt was strong enough to not pursue entrepreneurship. She didn't know if she had credit to get grants or loans. She didn't know what credit was because in her country, there simply wasn't that system. So one thing that we're trying to do in the SOAR program is make no assumptions. Where people are starting is the same spot, and we're all going to learn together. And whether it's financial literacy, whether it's cultural literacy, we're going to learn and grow together. And no answer is going to be a bad, or no question rather is going to be a bad one. So,
Yeah.
Hamad.
No, I mean, you're so right. And I think in a lot of programs that I see is, and not only in Canada, in other parts of the world where I work, people often forget how simple they can start. You know, any program, any training program, community, like a startup, like something basic. So often those basics are missing, and those basics are the foundation for everything. And the way we call it, on the pathway to success, you have to create one. You have to have a roadmap so that you could create a pathway to success. So it's not about I'm only looking for funding or I'm just fine tuning my idea, I'm just improving my pitch, I'm looking for a network. I think one has to have a holistic approach. It's a business is done by combining all these things. It's not just if I have money, I'll do business. It's not like that. Or I have a brilliant idea, I would be able to sell that idea. And I was reading somewhere, can't remember exactly who said, but there are no brilliant ideas out there, right? Everything that you wanted to do, somebody has already tested it. So it's all about execution. So this whole program um, also actually takes you to execute something. Just have a feel, just a taste of the actual entrepreneurial, journey. So, Kate, my question to you is again going back to the basic funding which one could access. Other, I mean, I'm sure there's BDC funding for newcomers and all that. But what are some of the basic funding mechanisms that are out there that one could actually look at locally? There are municipal level, city level. If you're looking at the province, there are provincial level, and I know Deb is smiling, but she's an expert in that. But let's hear from you.
Yeah, so there are a number of grants you can access, but I mean, there are two limitations and restrictions to, what you can access and when. I find with a lot of grants, and Deb is the expert, right? Like a lot of those grants, you have to be in business for 2 years, to be an incorporated business for 2 years. And so that's a big restriction. But certainly if you can access some of those grant resources, it's wonderful, non-dilutive funding. It's never free. I think that's what people sort of think grants are, but they can be a lot of work, certainly in the application and then the reporting that's required. So you always have to, there's always an opportunity cost to everything. So you really have to be mindful of those things. There's certainly, there's organizations um, like MyTax, Futurepreneur, that offer other resources, supports, funding programs for entrepreneurs that are national across Canada. Certainly, if you're building a tech business, something scalable, fast growth, you can look to investors like angel investors. I'll say too, with angel investors, of course, there's that opportunity cost. And of course, they are looking for sort of established businesses. So there is an expectation that you are working full time on the business. There's an expectation that this will not be your first fundraising round, that this is only sort of the start of a longer journey, and that you are looking to build sort of a global $1 billion business. And then, of course, I mean, which is hard, our banks here in Canada are pretty conservative. But of course, there's bank loans and lines of credit that you may be able to access depending on your financial status. But I know it can be very hard for immigrants who come to this country with no credit. um, so so it's really hard to fund a business at the earliest stages. Um, of course, if you can, we suggest entrepreneurs bootstrap as long as you can, figure out a way to self-finance. I know that's hard. Not all of us have, big bank accounts of savings that we can use to fund a business. But once you, certainly investors, grants are a little different, but once you bring on investors, your whole business really changes. You're no longer answering to, yourself and a team. You're answering to a bunch of investors. So it is something to be mindful of, that once you do choose that path, it does sort of change how you do business. But there are certainly ways to sort of start small while still, keeping that big picture, continue to think big about your business and have a long-term vision. But, what do you say in entrepreneurship? Fail fast.
Yeah, yeah,
and cheaply. Um, right. That's really what you want to do in the sort of those very, very early first stages of entrepreneurship. Fail fast and cheaply. Um, and start with something that feels manageable. Those small, it's kind of cheesy, but start small. start with something manageable, and build from there. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah. And keep sharing your story. I think this is one another missing piece in the whole scheme is, I was mentoring someone the other day, and I said, and this is a little failure, right? This girl failed fast. I said, this is congratulations to you because you actually failed and you failed fast. Now you are actually trying to look at the other aspects of things. But entrepreneurship is addictive. You get addicted to entrepreneurship. Once you're there, then it becomes very difficult to go back to your 9 to 5, 9 to 6 rut in the corporates. So for her, I said, you have got an excellent story to share. Share your story of failure because if you keep sharing, someone will come, and if this is the enthusiasm. So, if we are sitting in our room and it's as I said, it's too lonely, and we are not sharing whatever we are doing with people, then we are actually not attracting eyeballs. And Deb, remember, I think I shared with you or in one of the conversations. So what we are doing, we are at Canada Startup Association, building up a list of most socially active startups in Canada. And so I did a little survey of my own like community of startups. Most of them don't share anything, literally. And if you're not sharing, you're not building your community. You would probably have few people around you, but you're not actually giving back to the community with whatever you have learned. Um, so Kate, if I ask you what are top three things you would suggest to three things, one, two, three things you would suggest to a newcomer, in addition to attending SOAR program, of course, uh,
Yeah.
to do when she is starting her journey uh, in Canada and thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, maybe a small entrepreneur just to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, okay, so attending the SOAR program is number one, of course, but I think three other things. Certainly share your story, share your idea, talk to people. I think that goes with building a network. I think Hamad said it earlier, but but there's 9 billion people in this world now. Nine?
Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
Crazy, right? There's so many people. The truth of it is that someone's probably also thought of that idea. It really is about the execution. So don't be afraid to share your story, your ideas, with others, because you never know what will come from those conversations and those connections. um, I think, really build a network, which programs like SOAR and other programs can really help kickstart that and can give you that sort of built-in network to start. But, find peers who are also building businesses, advisors, people who will advocate for you, who will talk about you sort of behind closed doors, will mention you to clients, investors, etc. Um, and I think it's really important to find a mentor. I mean, it's really hard. There's not a good, like, straight way to do it. But, connect with, people, whether they're experienced entrepreneurs or, experienced leaders, in the industry you're trying to build a business in. But having sort of that guidance, that relationship, that connection with someone who can really act as a mentor, I think is incredibly important, especially if you're coming here to Canada as a newcomer and trying to build a business. Having someone that can help guide you or navigate you through sort of the Canadian business landscape, can be really, really important. And I think that goes with your network as well. Hopefully, those people are there to help as well. Like I said earlier, what you put in is what you get out. And there are so many people, whether they're entrepreneurs who are just starting their business or, they're executives at one of the banks or another large corporation. There are so many people who really do want to help and give their time. It's just about finding those people that fit, your business, your vision, et cetera, et cetera.
amazing. Deb.
Uh, Kate, you've spoken to all of our points so eloquently. Thank you. Um, you're like a spokesperson for the SOAR program. So please do share that we're going to start in March. I'm very excited. I heard some really great key takeaways from meeting with Kate today. Reach out, share your idea. It is all about the execution. I have a lot of ideas. I have an ideas list. There's still on the list,
Mhm.
right? So maybe I was at one point scared of sharing. They're still on the list. Like it's about being able to put the pieces in place to make it operational and put it out in the world. Had I shared some of those things with other people, maybe we would have got that out in the world. Maybe we still will. I'll have to think about that more. Thank you. Um, I just love how we spoke about pivoting and how we may have had as women one particular pathway that's kind of shifted because of a life event. And I want to welcome folks to consider entrepreneurship. I mean, one thing we didn't talk about was the freedom it gives. Like when things become get to that level where you're successful financially, that's one thing, but the freedom for me to be only having to iron the top of my shirt and work from home like
Yeah,
that, you can't pay money.
yeah,
So that's a trade-off I'm willing to do. I'm not a good fit with corporate. I needed that. I needed something, and entrepreneurship has fit the bill there. Um, and networks are really key, and that's one thing that Hamad and I have built into this program at SOAR is networking opportunities, how to network, what that looks like, who can you network with, and the mentorship piece. We will have mentors for folks who are in our program. So super happy to see where this goes. I mean, this is the first run at it. Hamad's got some really, really aggressive targets. He's been in this arena before, so he knows what the potential is. I just personally know that it's a comfortable, safe space for women to learn together and build new futures. So, um, where can people sign up, Hamad?
right. So people can sign up at our website, canadastartups.co. There's a separate page for SOAR program. You can visit that page, sign up there, and somebody will reach out to you with more details. And so we're going to put the website somewhere here. So please have a look, and please ask questions. When you watch this video, ask questions in comments, and we will definitely reach out to you. If you have anything specific to ask that also, and we'll reach out to Kate and get that answer for you. And Kate hopefully will also spare some time for mentoring the participants of our SOAR program, because we cannot miss that opportunity of bringing her wealth of knowledge into the program. And with that, thank you very much, Kate, for your time today. It's
Thanks for
been
having me.
fantastic. Yeah, it's lovely, and hopefully we'll get another opportunity to invite you into one of the programs soon.
Yeah.